Okay. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Health, Wisdom, and Wealth Show, where we're in powerful conversations about living your best life. Today, Dr. Akil Taher is our guest, and he and I explored the topic open heart, surgery or lifestyle. A tough choice? Well, some would say yes, and others would say, I can make a choice just like that, but that's what we're going to be talking about today. I'm extremely excited to welcome Dr. Taher. It's just been such an honor to get to know him, but let me tell you a little bit about him before we actually get started. He has such a rich background, and he's an amazing storyteller. And so it's my desire that what I tell you only gets you more interested and more excited about being with us today. Dr. Taher is a medical doctor, a resurgent physician, an author, a heart-healthy speaker, a septuagenarian athlete, a whole food, plant-based lifestyle movement advocate, and a holistic health and wellness consumer. But more importantly, and I think this is really what got me, he's a recovered bypass surgery patient. He tells the story of what he, hasn't always been the epitome of health and wellness. And, raised in Mumbai, India, many of us think, wow, how exciting could that be, right? And trained in family medicine in Bower Hospital in Sylvania, Ohio. I lived in Columbus for a long time. I can only imagine what it was like in Sylvania. Dr. Taher has had an amazing career as a physician, and yet he didn't believe that heart disease would happen to him. And in August 2009, at the age of 61, open heart surgery knocked at his door and his world took a drastic turn. It's easy to see that determination ran deep with his deciding to completely change his lifestyle. And today, much has changed for him. Dr. Taher has run marathons and climbed mountains, and while still running a successful practice. Imagine that. He's gone from couch potato that he talks about in his book, Open Heart, to being an eternal optimist, an explorer, and adventurer, and he's come to share his story and wisdom with us today. So, audience, help me welcome Dr. Akil Taher. Hi, Dr. Akil, how are you today?
I'm doing very well, Lynn. Thank you for having me on the show. And I must say that that was a very kind introduction. Thank you again.
You are so welcome. Thank you for taking the time to be with us today. I'm really excited because while I've read your book, I know that there is so much more about you that I just haven't got a clue. So I'm really interested in hearing what you're going to tell us today. And let's just start by share with us your journey from growing up in Mumbai towards this focus on the healing art of medicine.
Well, first of all, I was in Mumbai for the first 20 years of my life. That was my home. And I did not really want to be a doctor, but the fact was at that time in India, not now, at that time in India, there were only three choices you had. One was, if you're from a very rich family, you get into the family business. Number two was either you became a doctor or you became an engineer. Otherwise, you go into arts, where people who could not get into this, they went into arts. It's unlike now, where there's so many possibilities in the world of arts and advertising and media. But at that time, we didn't have all that. So that was a reason. It was not some reason for saving people or all that, to be honest. It was because I chose that was what I had to do. It was afterwards I got interested. So my beginning, this thing wasn't like that. unlike my son, who had a definite reason of why he wanted to follow my footsteps, but I did not. Now, having said that, after I became a doctor, I spent about 11 years in the Middle East, in a city called Manama in Bahrain. It's in the Gulf area. These 10 years of my life were spent with other British, Australian, American doctors. Some of them are my colleagues right now here in Florida. We actually opened the first medical school in the Gulf Medical School in Bahrain. And we were involved in opening that school. So if I spent about 11 years after that, I came over to America pretty late. And to find a residency was extremely difficult because I was a foreign medical graduate. I was older, in my 40s. So I still distinctly remember going for an interview, and the director of the residency program, family practice program, we had a nice chat. And at the end, he says, you know what, Akil, you have greater qualifications than I have. You're older than I am. How are you going to spend 12 hours with this young residents and 12, 18 hours a day? And I looked at him and my only answer was, Lynn, you'll never know until you give me a chance. So in any case, I went around, I must have filled in 300 residency programs, and I was interviewed in 16. Finally, I chose Sylvania, Ohio. And it's surprising, at that time, my son went into a 6-year medical program. That's a fast medical program. And my wife threw a party because he just turned out to be a young doctor finishing his medical school, the youngest in his class. And I just finished my residency, the oldest resident in my group. So here is the oldest resident husband, and the son is the youngest medical doctor who has come out of that. And I remember she telling the people this story, you know. So I guess, you know, Lynn, I may be a late bloomer. I do everything a little late. So I started late with plant-based diet at age 61, when others do it for now, been doing it for 25 years and 40 years. So, and then, so I came over to the States. And when I landed up in Alabama, in a small town called Gadsden, now all through my adult life, and I mean this, all through my adult life, I loved unhealthy, rich food. And we are talking about the standard American diet, very aptly called the SAD diet of meat, eggs, and dairy and sugar, or the standard Indian diet, which is full of saturated fats and ghee and oil. So I was a lover of anything that was oily and greasing, be it Italian or Chinese or sushis or whatever. So I was labeled as a seafood eater, S-E-E. I ate everything at sight. And to me, this was like a treat. And I did have problems at that time, but I thought it was just a matter of, enjoying food. Now with this, I was a couch potato. The only exercise probably that I did was my finger muscles on the remote, changing the channels on the TV, or watching runners jog in the park with my eye muscles. I did nothing else. And the first generation South Asians, Indians like me, who come over here, they do not know the meaning of exercise. Now, remember one thing, Lynn, when I came in pretty late, my 40s. So everybody goes and pursues the American dream. Great, I have no problems regarding that. But what I landed up was a reckless pursuit of fame and fortune.
Mm.
And that was a thing. In trying to do that, I worked long hours and gave talks for Pfizer, but at the expense, with scant attention to my mental and physical health or to my family and friends. In fact, I feel very strongly that my job robbed me of an opportunity to lead a purposeful, positive, passion life. So comes the time that with all these stressors that I talked about, with the no exercise, with unhealthy eating, I was not surprised when heart disease came knocking at my door. And so I believe it was in London when I was walking with my friend that every 4 minutes I would get chest discomfort. I knew in my heart of heart as a doctor that this was angina, this was heart. But trust me, Lynn, in my mind, I played every symptom that was not heart related and attributed to non-heart cause because I knew the danger. Anyway, I got through that, came back to the US, got an angiogram. I had a heart disease, coronary artery disease, which incidentally is a leading cause of death for both men and women in the US and worldwide, killing more people than all the cancers combined, as well as COVID. So I came back and I had to have stents. Now people think, oh, if I have a problem, I'll go in for stents. That's not that easy. When they took me for stents, my plaques or the gunk in my coronaries was so thick that they had to use a diamond tip cutter to shave off those plaques. And in the process, I got a cardiac arrest. And it shocked me to restart my heart. And I was totally shocked when I got up the next morning, when I got out of the anesthesia, and I saw battle burns on my chest. They had to stop the procedure because there were two arteries, 98 and 99% blocked. But after the first artery, this happened, they had to stop. And they had to call me the next day, put me in the hospital that day, and next day they had to do it all over again for the other artery.
Whoa.
And there was swelling in my groins, and being a workaholic, third day after, remember this was done on Friday, Thursday and Friday, and Saturday and Sunday, Monday, I was back at work.
What? Oh my.
So that is what I'm trying to tell you. Okay, I was back at work. Everybody says, that this kick on your backside, you would have changed. I did not, Lynn. I was so miserable, and I was so angry. I was so much in denial. I was so depressed. I would sit on my chair and look at the ceiling for long hours, sometimes cupping my face with my hands and sobbing. And my nights were terrible, sweats. My mornings were not better. I was tired, weak before going to work. And all these tormenting thoughts ran riots in my mind. And this deep, dark energies now manifested itself into physical problems. So there come sinuses and infections and bronchitis every year.
Mhm.
I was caught with that stomach problems. Oh man, the chronic constipation, the hemorrhoids, the thrombotic piles, and the infamous diverticulitis.
Mm.
So many of my American patients have. The reason being, there's hardly any roughage, there's hardly any fiber in our diet, the meat, eggs, and dairy. So I had the same diet. I'm an American. I had the same diet. So I got the diverticulitis twice, both times perforated, put me in the hospital. Long time, and IV antibiotics going for days together. Both the times, and mouth ulcers that remained with me for 2 or 3 years. And the second time it got perforated, and I kid you not, this is the honest truth. The surgeon was waiting because I just called the surgeon to see what was the thing. And he told me, doc, if I don't take and cut off a part of colon right now, again, it was a Friday, I'm not sure that you will survive. And I immediately called my GI friends here in Yale and this and that. And they said, wait, don't let him touch you. What is your temperature? How are you stable? I was stable.
Mhm.
And so I let go. Otherwise, he was ready with a knife. So again, it was not a surprise that my angioplasty, opening up my coronaries and putting the stents, failed. And I had to have an open heart bypass surgery. This was the inflection point in my life.
Mm.
Something hit me, and I can't explain. I was really now tired of this life. And I had two options, two choices. One, to live this sedentary life, continue leading this, like some of my heart patients, sit on the rocking chair, live vicariously through my children and my grandchild, and wait for the inevitable death. Or make this setback into an opportunity to do something, to help people, to understand myself better. So I chose the latter. As they were wheeling me in the surgery room, I looked at the nurses. Now, partly this may be due to the drug-infused anesthesia, but what I'm saying is I looked at them and I said, you know what? I'm going to do a half marathon in a year's time if all goes well. They smiled, they joked, they sort of humored me. I don't blame them. They thought I'd gone crazy. But in exactly after that, my recovery was remarkable. Lynn, my recovery was remarkable. Third day, I was on the treadmill. I have
Wow.
not taken one pain medication after my surgery. Not one pain medication.
Wow.
In fact, the pain, that cut me open. The pain of this cut that cut me open was, in a way, I don't think people understand this, but it was in a way a pleasure compared to the agony that I had gone through the last 5 years after my stents.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
took these steps. This sedentary slop who had not done half a kilometer now started doing half, 1, 2, and I started enjoying. And I started feeling like meditation in motion. And then I came 8 months later, my wife and I went over to Nashville, where I did my first half marathon. There was a dichotomy of fear and excitement. I didn't know if my heart was going to carry me through. But when I did that, I felt like I was on top of Mount Everest. Then on, there was no stopping.
Wow. I know no stopping. You have been skydiving and mountain climbing. And again, I love the stories. You're such a great storyteller. You told the story about climbing Mount Kailash and climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. What was your biggest, I guess, insight from the mountain climbing that you've done?
See, the thing is, Lynn, that when I went on Mount Kailash, that was the same year, in 2011, I went around. I thought it was a trek, but it wasn't a trek. It was a pilgrimage, a yatra.
Mm.
Now, this was in Tibet, which is in Chinese occupied. So the Chinese do not like you if you are an American, or they don't like you if you look like an Indian, because they have a fight war with both. I was both. American passport, looks like an Indian. The Chinese said, no, you cannot leave the group. So I said, I can't leave? They said, no. So I said, okay, if you can't beat them, join them. So I started living like a pilgrim. Then it dawned on me that this is not a journey just going upwards. This is a journey that is going inwards. And so I began to feel that there was something happening. So when you do the parikrama, that is when you go around for the last 72 hours without changing your clothes or anything, it's just 72 hours of non-stop walking, except for that little bit of lunch or this thing, and sleeping in the tent. So we did this for 72 hours, climbing higher and higher till you come to the Dolma Pass. A lot of people have died at the Dolma Pass. And at that time, people started high-fiving. I didn't want to. I went out, I went alone, sat on a rock, and said, what is all this in life? All the material things. Can I really give up all this and just live? See, look how happy I am. That was the kind of feeling. The inward journey was as important as an outward, upwards journey. And therefore, that was a great experience I had. My wife came down. My wife and I came down, my wife turned around and said, you know, that something has happened up there because you mellowed down your type A personality. And then was Mount Kilimanjaro. Kilimanjaro was a different thing. It was an American company. It was great as far as all the, but the point on Kilimanjaro was, I was pretty old. I was 65 at that time. And to climb this is not easy. Now, you have to take, because it has got malaria over there. So you have to take medications for malaria till you reach a certain height. Because if you reach a height of 15,000 or something, 14,000 or 13,000, you don't need the malaria medication because mosquitoes don't survive. Mm-hmm. So initially, when we were there in Moshi, the town, we were given this Malaron medication. One of the side effects of Malaron is insomnia. So for the first 2-3 nights, I couldn't sleep. Now, the combination of being 65, they told us you to drink 5 liters of fluid every single day, taking diuretics, water pills, and having an enlarged prostate is not a good combination. So I was in this tent, which was good enough for one person, but that kept 2 of us in there. And if you are there not sleeping, and in the dead of cold, and the 5 liters of water that and the diuretics, you want to pee every hour, hour and a half. Your sleep, maybe a little longer you can go, but I could not. So I was trying to search for this is an open talk, so I'm being very open. I was trying to search for my headlamp to get it, to see where my pee bottle was. Finally, I got my pee bottle and I adjusted myself and left, right, and in my sleeping bag, but nothing happened. So I knelt, and my partner sort of looked up and said, what are you doing? And I said, through truth be told, I'm waiting for a miracle. So, and then, so the idea was, it was hilarious because when I'm not sleeping, I'm talking. And then the other people in the other tents are saying, shut up, go back to sleep. So, it was hilarious. I mean, I enjoyed the nice thing was that same year, my grandson Kai was born. So I'd taken his pacifier, and my trainer gave me a sliver of a wedding dress.
Oh.
But the sad part is that I had put it, because you're with mittens and so many things, and you're covered, and it's minus 20, and the winds are blowing, and it is, the oxygen is only 50% of what you have down. So you are taking each step. So when you have this thing, I couldn't find when I reached the peak. I couldn't fire or the sliver of the wedding dress. So when we came down, I found, but in a way it is good because they don't let you put anything over there.
Mm-hmm. So you still have those mementos today?
Yes.
Awesome.
The mementos bring me to a very classical story, Lynn.
Okay.
People are in America. You never know, It was the Boston Marathon.
Uh-huh.
I had this Boston Red Sox hat, a custom made hat, because what happens, I think I told the story sometimes back. Yeah, I must have. I had this hat, which I think it was cold, pretty cold when we went to the Boston Marathon, and I had to wear a toboggan to keep myself warm. But as it got hot, I threw the toboggan out, and then I had $20 in my pocket. I went up to a stranger who had his better half standing next to him. And I said, look, I'll give you $20 if you give me your hat. I didn't know it was custom made. I didn't know it was Red Sox. I just said, look, and he wasn't really sure about giving it till his girlfriend just said, give the damn hat. And she didn't even take the $20. As I was going by, he turned around and said, that hat has been with me for 10 years. So you better finish the race. And that gave me the inspiration and the motivation to finish the race, even with a calf muscle tear that I had.
Wow.
This is a kindness.
I love that story. I've run 2 marathons. One was the Marine Corps Marathon, and I know what it feels like to run 26 miles. And I cannot imagine what it was like to have a calf tear along with it. So I'm just, again, unbelievable. You are amazing. Let me ask you this question. I read somewhere, I don't know if I read it in your book or on your website, but you have this quote, I reincarnated into a new life to stay true to the meaning of my first name, Akil, the wise. Tell us about that.
You see, Akil in the Arabic, this thing is the wise. It means wise. I don't profess to be wise, but that is the meaning of my name. Now, I was thinking about who should I dedicate this book to? The first person that comes is my wife, because she's the only one who stood up at all my shenanigans. And I tell you, Lynn, the best masseuse in the world. So that was my wife. But then I thought, I have to give some kind of recognition to the old Akil. Because if I don't do that, then it makes no sense. It is that old Akil that helped me to change into the person I am today. So that's why I dedicated the book even to the old Akil. And thank God you're not interviewing him.
Oh my gosh. Well, I tell you what, I'm sure it would be an interesting conversation as well, but thank you for sharing that. Um, it's really amazing. You talk about this transitioning cycle, the old Akil, the new Akil. And I often talk about how we've moved through this cycle that is more planetary. The age of Pisces being completed, and we're entering into the age of Aquarius, of peace and harmony and collaboration. And I believe we've also entered into a time when people want to know more about what it takes now to get healthy, to be healthy, to stay healthy. And it's a time that we're seeing the ship called the medical and the healthcare system, which is really what I call a sick care system. And we're seeing it begin to do this major turn in direction to having more of a focus on prevention and actually going back to where things began. Our grandparents, they went to the doctor when something was wrong. And the first question was, what do you think caused this? And things have changed, but we're seeing things going back in that direction, really focusing on prevention and getting to the root cause of illnesses. Yet one of the biggest issues is, and please don't be offended by this, but I believe I have been in this space for long enough as a fitness professional for almost 20 years. I know the things that I was taught in getting my many certifications, and none of it was about nourishing the body so the body could do for you what you needed it to do. And I know in your book, your first chapter talks about how doctors make the worst patients. And I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about what you shared in that chapter, and maybe even draw a correlation to why a lot of doctors can be considered the problem in the slow turn of this ship of change to getting us really into a well care system. And what's your, first of all, reason doctors make the worst patients, and then two, why many doctors are a part of this problem in the slow turning towards a well care system that we're moving towards?
That's an excellent question, Lynn. I think we doctors are sometimes, not all, but we feel we know it all. And we know that the conventional medicine will help us out in some way. Treat my consequence of my disease. And because I am in this situation, I have everybody around me and they can take care of me. So you become, in a sense, that, and again, you feel it's not going to happen to you. I know what I'm doing. I read the American Heart Association papers. I read the American Family Practice papers. I'm talking to my patients on the basis of what these journals tell me to. And I'm following it to a little bit here and there. So I'm okay. Because I was a different sort. I did not follow, but I was very good with my patients. That was one thing, always remember, I was never bad with my patients. But I was giving an advice that time that was what every doctor was doing. We did not know any better. If Maimonides, the Jewish philosopher, says that no disease that can be treated by diet should be treated with any other means. Okay, so it's nutrition, it's diet, right? This is a very strong, powerful statement. Why is this not being taught in medical schools? If that is so important, you should be teaching that. Well, what are we doing? I was taught 0 hours of nutrition. My son, who is a doctor too, he was taught 1 to 4 hours of 5 hours in a year. So that was about 15 to 20 hours in 4 years, 20, 25 hours in 4 years of medical school. Is that enough? And now when we know about it, a lot of doctors don't want to do it because This is not monetized. Insurance companies will not pay you. But if I were to spend 15 minutes with you, I would give you much more advice, even if you came with diverticulitis or pneumonia or bronchitis. Then, if I were to just give you the treatment with antibiotics, dish out medicines, and tell you you're going to be okay, I'm going to give you an antibiotic, so I'm going to give you a breathing treatment, go home. What have I done? Consequence of the disease I have treated. Where is the cause part of it? Where is the prevention part of it? There's someone who comes around with diabetes mellitus or high blood pressure or cholesterol. I am telling them exercise. That's all I'm doing. Eat better. And here is a medication. Oh, it has not come down. Okay, take some more. So my point is, we have reached a stage that chronic diseases, including heart disease. When we say chronic disease, we are talking about heart disease, strokes, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, obesity, Alzheimer's, and a slew of other diseases.
Mm-hmm.
Now, all these diseases have few things in common. They all have the backdisting of inflammation. That is the main thing. Then it is an oxidative process. And then it is an overstimulation of the sympathetic nervous system whereby you get all stressed out. So these are man-made. We have made this. So when people turn around and say, treat the cause of high blood pressure, I am beginning to wonder, why even treat the cause of high blood pressure? Why should you be getting high blood pressure? Because whole food, plant-based, no oil diet is the only diet in the world today that can not only prevent coronary artery disease, but reverse coronary artery disease.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Esselstyn's own patient, a surgeon, he came to him because he didn't want surgery. And his coronary that was shown was moth-eaten, narrowed down plaques. And in 2.5 to 3 years of a whole food, whole food plant-based, no oil diet, and the coronary is dilated. So I'm going to make here a very important statement, Lynn. Had I known then what I know today, there's a possibility that I would not have gone in for stents or surgery, but looked for other options.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there it is where it comes around in understanding the coronary artery blood flow. You see, it is so important to understand that every blood vessel, your veins and your arteries, your arteries are 50,000 miles. Your veins are 50,000 miles, and the combination is much more in weight than the liver. But these arteries and veins, they have one inner lining. It's called the endothelium. That's all I want the listeners to understand this. That's the endothelium. That endothelium produces a very important substance that is called nitric oxide. This nitric oxide keeps the blood vessel dilated, keeps the blood flowing smoothly, does not allow the cholesterol to go on the walls, and protects the walls of the arteries. Now, what happens when you have the standard American diet or a bad diet? It destroys the endothelium. Once the endothelium is beginning to being destroyed, now comes the culprits, the villains. Now you've got cholesterol, your calcium, your fibrin, all will come around and latch onto that wall, forming a plaque. Now, this plaque, if it's angina, will take decades to form, like it did in my case. So it must have started because atherosclerosis or fatty streaks start at the age of 10, Lynn, my grandson's age. And then when it goes on, it becomes so thick, very unlikely to break. So when in this case, when we start putting stents and doing bypass surgery, what are we doing? We are destroying the endothelium when we put a stent. So the whole idea is, now, if you have a heart attack, that's a different situation. Recent scientific research has been done that heart attacks are caused by friable, soft clots, not the hard clots that I was talking about in my case, soft clots. These tend to break, form an emboli, get attached to some part of the heart. That part of the heart dies. You're getting a heart attack. Oh my God, that excruciating chest pain. You're on the floor. Of course, they take you to the emergency. In the emergency room, they start doing your EKG and start doing your blood test and know that you are having a heart attack. And they take you into the up there where they in the cath lab, and boom, 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 they take off your clots and put the stents and put the, if that fails, do the heart surgery. Perfect. But not for angina. So for angina, now, having said that, let me say, if you have got a stent, or if you've got bypass surgery, whatever the reason may be, you still are doing band-aid treatment to that part. So for all of us to revive the endothelium, because endothelium is in the brain, vessels, it is in your arteries, in your legs, in your kidneys, penile arteries. So all these arteries are there. So you may say, okay, I got my stents and I'm happy now. You can get a stroke. With the endothelium is still the same. So if you start eating rubbish like I did for that 5 years, there's every possibility. It's an interesting thing when I tell my patients you're going to heart attack, they don't want to follow the whole food. Some of them don't want to follow the whole food plan. But if I tell them that you are going to have erectile dysfunction, boom, they listen to me.
Oh my gosh. What's more important, huh?
Penile arteries are narrower than the coronary arteries. So I've seen most of my patients who got high blood pressure, who smoke, they are the ones who come first to me with an erectile dysfunction. Let's get our endothelium, the lining, to come back to shape and really get us going.
And a whole food, plant-based diet can change things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I am not saying tomorrow or a year from now, 10 years from now, something else may come out. Right now, if you want to reverse your chronic diseases or your heart disease, coronary artery disease, there is no other diet better than the whole food, plant-based, no oil diet.
Love that. So while we're on the subject of food, let's talk a little bit about whether or not it's, a lot of people really believe that it's essential to have animal protein or meat byproducts like dairy and cheese to meet what some people say they need for their nutritional value, right? And so are meat and meat byproducts actually harmful to the human body, and why?
Absolutely. And let me tell you one more thing. In my opinion, as Rip Esselstyn said it very beautifully, that milk or dairy products is a liquid meat. So, because it has saturated fat, cholesterol, everything. Now, when we talk about animal proteins, I've yet to see in my 45 years anybody who is protein deficient. So there is no protein deficiency. Animal protein and plant proteins are roughly the same, roughly the same. Amino acids that are there are same. But the quantity of the protein in the animal is far greater. And that is the thing that is causing the problem, number one. Number two, animal protein don't have any fiber. So we need about 36 grams, don't quote me on this, I think it is about 36 grams of fiber. An average American takes 10 to 15 grams of fiber. So what happens? There comes irritable bowel syndrome and your diverticulitis and the whole 9 yards. So the question is that then third, plant-based has got a lot of fiber. Then third, animal protein has saturated fat and cholesterol. Plant-based don't have that. Then all the nitrogen, all the byproducts of animal protein have to be eradicated. So there's a lot of load on the kidneys. So you get into a renal dysfunction. And then when you heat this at very high temperatures, some of these proteins, animal proteins, they cause substances that can be carcinogenic, they can cause cancer. And then you have the one of the biggest things that I love to talk about is the TMAO. Have you heard about TMAO?
Not that I know of.
TMAO is, when you have it is L-carnitine and your there are certain substances. This is about bacteria that works on the choline in our gut. And then what it does is it makes the transamines, and then these are oxidized and taken in the body as transamine and oxidase. So this TMAO is one of the biggest factors of causing atherosclerosis in your arteries, in your coronary arteries. It is highly inflammatory. And this is a separate risk factor from the other risk factors we have. So this is the choline that is converted into the TMAO eventually. So this is one of the factors again with animal proteins. Then the heme iron is worse than the plant-based iron. So that is another cause that is a problem. So again, when we talk about dairy, think about one thing. Where else in the animal kingdom do we have a species that drinks milk once it is already finished the mother's milk? Once the person is weaned, the animal is weaned, they never go back to drink. We humans are smarter. We not only drink human milk, but we go and drink a cow's milk, another species. And it is heart-rendering to understand this, that you have to impregnate the cows constantly with estrogens so that they have produced the milk that we need. And when the babies are born, they're snatched away. And they're put in little crates. And they're sold in the restaurant as veal. So here you have the cows mooing in the night, crying for the babies. And this is what we do, because we use that milk for our cereals and this and that. Now, try and think about this. You have a lactose which 70% of the people in the world are intolerant to it. Why do people still take dairy? And they get distended they get flatulent, but they feel this is a normal process of having a nice big meal with dairy. So then you have the casein, a protein which is found in cow's milk, which you cannot digest. That's why you get a lot of mucus production and all that, allergies. But even if you digest, it forms, this is what I've read, that it may form casomorphine.
Mm-hmm.
And a small amount, large amount of milk, makes a small amount of cheese. So the cheese is concentrated with casomorphines. So that is where my patients will always tell me, when I turn around and ask them, have you given up dairy? They will say, yes. And say, what about cheese? They say, no, I have cheese. Because they can't give that up. So all this acne and seasonal allergies, all these things are constant when you have. So in my opinion, if somebody has to give up one thing, it has to be dairy. To start with dairy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And because you got so many other choices. If you love yogurts, you got yogurts made out of pea milk, PEA milk. You get out of almond milk, you get cashew milk yogurts, you get soy milk yogurts. You get all the ice creams that are made out if you want to splurge sometimes. There is no need. There is no need. Why is India the heart disease capital of the world when it is vegetarian? One of the basic reasons is because it has a lot of dairy.
Wow. It's funny that you mentioned that. I love hummus. And for some reason, the kind of hummus that I loved and loved to get wasn't being digested well. And so I went through this process of being my own experiment. And I said, well, let me leave hummus alone for a while. Within a week, I could feel the difference. And, it's the whole psychological thing. And that leads me to my next question. But, sometimes it's realizing or thinking, convincing yourself that it's too painful to lose this thing. It's too painful for me to give up cheese. It's too painful for me to give up things that I think I love, yet I know they're making me sick. And my question is, how do we get a handle on this mind space and yoga, meditation, breath work, spirituality? Do they in any way play a part in your transformation and the transformation that others might be able to experience when they're looking at making these changes? And I know in your book, you talked about having this really transformational experience. And I wanted to ask you if these things contribute. Do people really feel as though they need to do something like go to an ashram or, spend an hour every day in this state of meditation? So what did you really experience, first of all? And then what would you tell others about bringing this mind space into calm and just a more practical approach to looking at our health?
Lynn, a great question. We have the 6 pillars in lifestyle medicine. And what are those 6 pillars? The first thing is eat better, a whole food plant-based diet. Number 2 is exercise. This should be done at least 30 minutes of moderate exercise, 5 days a week under a stress-free environment. Number 3 is sleep. At least 7 to 8 hours of sleep at night. Okay. Number 4, how to handle stress. It is not stress. Everybody has stress. If we really were worried about that, then think about it. All these big leaders and CEOs and presidents and prime ministers, they all would have been in a lunatic asylum. With the stress they have, they know how to handle stress. Now, next is 5, social support. And this is where I feel that if you do not have a proper social network and support, whether it be church or a synagogue or a mosque or what have you, that becomes a different type of loneliness, not the one I experienced in Mount Kailash. Then the last one is avoid tobacco and overuse of alcohol. Now, out of all the 6 pillars that I've talked about, your exercise, your diet is taken care of. Now, what are the other things? I cannot sleep well. I'm much better after whole food plant-based diet. I still have problems of sleeping. Oh, I still have problems of stress. Social network is, of course, a different situation. But, oh, I'm addicted to tobacco. How can I give it up? For these things, you require mindful meditation. The yoga, the pranayama, the sky breathing, this all helps in the stress, the anxiety. And what helped me was, it was the Art of Living courses. Art of Living by Sri Ravi Shankar. Sri, S-R-I. And they have some beautiful courses on mindful meditation, yoga, sky breathing. And these have been proven by the peer group from Harvard and other top universities that this sky breathing does work. So my point is that in my own transformation, I had a lot of other issues. How am I going to give up this? It would scare me. How am I going to give up fish? I love fish. So what am I going to do? How am I going to give it up? Then you need this crutches. What I just said, that helps you to overcome these things, So to me, whether it is yoga, in older people especially, see, we get very stiff. We lose our balance. If you do a proper yoga, nothing else but do a sun salutation 3 or 4 times in the morning, it takes care of your stretching, it takes care of your yoga. But 90% of the people that I've seen them do sun salutation really don't know how to do it. So if you do it in a proper, and there are videos that can show you. We've got enough of good, but and you can do this so that you have the aerobic exercises like your biking or running or walking briskly, or then you can have strengthening exercises, strength exercises, your balance, and your stretching. These are the things that help you. And these are the few crutches that I think really help a person who's trying to transform, I hope I answered your question.
You did. And it reminds me of, you wrote in your book, Living with Nature and Thriving with Exercise. And I love that chapter because you described going to this place that seemed just so peaceful. And tell us a little bit about that.
It was a very remote place, Ramandar, in South India. And that is where I really learned that nature has the power to renew and refresh. I went over there because I wanted to be with nature, but I did not realize that it was totally the basics. You slept in a room that just had 4 walls. And when one cot that was the coir rope one in a blanket, there was water that was not free flowing, but it was just trickling around there. And everybody was so calm and peaceful. And I was with several younger people from several countries, as far as Australia and Canada, Japan, and in England. And we became good friends. And the whole thing was that, yes, we have time limits and we have to do things in a proper way, otherwise we are left behind. But there was an experience of just letting it be. So when I entered that, and I forget what his name was now, Anhata Healing Center, he invited me in, and I was wondering, is this the center? This doesn't look like a center. But then in the morning, I asked him, what do I do? He says, relax. You want to help in the kitchen, you help in the kitchen. If you want to go and help when people are making certain, for old people, they're making some huts, go and help them. If you want to get water, get water. If you want to meet villagers, meet villagers. And that kind of a thing. Every morning we would do our yoga, we would do our meditation, and then we would stand around on the street corners, very small streets corners, and start having little cups of tea or coffee and chat. And the thing was that most of the thing, like how football is over here or baseball is over here, we have what is called as cricket. So cricket is like a religion in India. So that is how we wish to talk about it and get into a great friendly arguments, and would be just happy. So I remember helping them to make this old people's place. And just yesterday, what is the date today? 22nd, right? Yeah, yesterday was a day when I got a video, and I sent it to you, Lynn.
I have it. I'd love to share it. While I'm getting it prepared, do you want to set it up a little more?
Yes, so this thing was when people over there get older and they find that they cannot, there's nobody to look after them and the relatives are not there, then this Anhata Healing Center brings them to their place so that the last years are not in pain and agony, you know. So this is one which I just got yesterday. I think it is worth sharing it.
Can you see it okay?
Yes.
You can hear it?
Yes. See, his name was Kiran. And all these, you see those little bikes and all that, or so these are donated by people who come and stay there. So that is how they get these to help people. Even when I was there, there was an old man who had nobody, and they came around and they got him a place over there, just a room, just the walls, looked after him. So that those last years in a person's life are at least, see, you saw her, how happy she was. Actually, you saw where she was lying.
Yeah.
Nobody would, no food, no water, nothing. They just picked her up from there.
That was amazing. And, we often get so caught up in us and in what's going on with ourselves that we forget that there are others who are honestly a lot worse off. And there are people who are there, who are able to help and willing to help. And, I'm very much into social entrepreneurship. And one of the things that, I love about what it is that you're doing, even with your book, all of the proceeds from the sale of your book goes to charity. And, as a social enterprise, this is something that I talk about often with our audience about doing things that you can take a certain portion of what you're doing and give to the places that are doing these things already. A lot of times we think we have to start it ourselves, and we don't even take the time to look and see who's doing what's in alignment with our hearts. And I love that you brought that to us. And I really do believe that in knowing this, just like knowing about a whole food, plant-based diet and lifestyle can be life-changing. Something like that can be life-changing. And I just really, really appreciate you for that. I've got 2 more questions for you. And this first one is going to take us a little deeper as well. And let's talk about the weighing of surgery, in particular open heart surgery, against, changing lifestyle. And not just what you eat, because that is like I think, most important thing, because it then fuels everything else happening. You eat right, you can sleep better, you can get out in nature and walk, you can do all of the other things that support this. And for a lot of people, it's a tough choice. It can be about your cultural roots or spending precious time in unlearning bad habits to learn new habits. And, we're such a time conscious people. I don't have time for a lot of stuff, so I'll go to fast food. And really, it takes time to learn new ways to cook or to find the right foods on a menu when you go to a restaurant, and so that you can stay in this healthy space. So my question, did you have that choice? Would you make a different choice? And what do you advise others as they're trying to make this kind of a choice?
You see, I would tell people that I had my chest cut open for an open heart surgery. I want Mother Nature to actually do surgery on the people without a surgeon doing, but to create an open heart. This creation of an open heart is going to solve your problems. Always remember, diet is more important than exercise. You see, you cannot outrun your diet. If I do 5 kilometers at a good pace, I will still spend about 300 to 400 calories. But I go to McDonald's, have one burger, it'll be 250 calories. And if I'm still hungry and have a real double-decker, it is 600, 700 calories. So you can't outrun your diet. And people always say two things. I've got great genes. My genetics are great. My father lived up to be this. My mother lived up to be 90. I'm not worried about it. Or there are others on this side who will say, oh, I've got bad genes. Who cares? I'm going to eat. I'm going to die because my father died at 50. I'm going to die. Both these people, let me tell you all, genetics plays a very small role in your health outcome, maybe 5 to 10%. And that too can be negated or mitigated by a proper whole food, plant-based diet. We now talk about epigenetics. That does not change the genes, but environment can make the genes work better. So when you have these kind of problems, I am talking to people at 3 different levels. One, I do not want to give a sermon to the choir, for want of a better word, who are already there. You are plant-based, you're doing the right things, fair enough. Then there are people who have not yet done it, and they've got problems like I had, and still they don't want to do it. There are younger people who got bad family history, bad this thing, and they are there. And there are some people on the fence. They're trying very hard, but they don't have it. So when I talk to my patients, I don't tell them that you're going to live long, you're not going to have diseases. I tell them, try it out. See how good you feel. If you don't feel good, don't do it. That helps them. I said, okay, if you're a strong-willed person, do it a cold turkey. Or if you are not that strong-willed like I am, I'm not strong-willed. I was not strong-willed. So I took steps, baby steps. And I'm sorry, Lynn.
That's okay.
So I decided to, this is what I would tell them, that try it out. See, you're in a far better place. I'm talking to the younger folks. We got a 600% increase in veganism. And you have restaurants. You've got groups on Facebook. You got recipes. You got books by the gurus like Dean Ornish and Dr. Khan. So I think there is no excuse now, since you have that. In my case, it was not there. So what we had to do was with boiled food, tasteless. But now you can use the spices, and they teach you how to do these things. Of course, it takes me a longer time than other people because I'm a bad cook. But I'm learning. I'm learning. So that is my
That's amazing.
That's what I'm trying to say, that if we can change step by step and tell them, look, try to. This is not the thing. Because when I came to this country, I hardly saw a diabetic patient before the age of 50. And see, diabetes was always at that time juvenile insulin-dependent diabetes, type 2 diabetes. Now we have got those 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds who are not they are insulin dependent, but they're not juvenile. They were not born with this. They've become, the pancreas have failed to get any insulin out. So they've become insulin dependent at the age of 30. And then you have the type 2 diabetics who have the pancreas working but not working well. So they need medications to make the pancreas work, or the whole food plant-based diet. It'll make the pancreas come back to normal.
There are so many reasons to have this kind of lifestyle. And one is that the whole food plant-based diet actually helps give your body the nutrients that it needs in order to rejuvenate itself and heal itself. And, you know, we all, I would venture to say, know that our bodies are self-healing, but our bodies have certain needs in order to be in that self-healing process. And our microbiome plays a very important part in all of that. So Dr. Akil, tell us, you mentioned about the microbiome and about the epithelial cells, but how does the microbiome work? You know, I remember a doctor saying that antibiotics actually will destroy the microbiome, and it takes a while for the good bacteria to come back. So tell us a little bit about the microbiome, what keeps it healthy, what destroys it, and if probiotics really work.
This is very close to my heart. I love talking about microbiomes. Microbiomes are gut bacteria. They in fact weigh a little more than the human brain, but they have the same kind of function as your brain. They help in immunity, they form vitamins, they process the food, they fight other bacteria, and there's so many other things that we still don't know about. And these bacteria, trillions of bacteria, which are there in your gut. Now, if you look at it, these microbiomes have been manipulated for certain diseases by bacteria. For example, if you have what is called as Clostridium difficile, it is a bacterial infection in the gut, very difficult to eradicate, very difficult with antibiotics. So they take the stool from the person who is healthy bacteria and transplant it into the stool of the person who has the Clostridium, and they get better. So obviously this bacteria is extremely important. But then comes in the big companies. Oh, gut bacteria, we got the probiotics. We can save your gut bacteria. How are you going to save gut bacteria, trillions of them, by taking a pill of a probiotic? It makes no sense. And we have got $1 billion industry of having probiotics in our cereals, in our coffee, in our iced tea, in our dog food, and even in our baby food. So where is all this probiotics going? So I did a little bit of research, and I found two exceptionally intelligent professors in Israel who did this study, and they found that there were two groups of people. One group was given placebos, the other group was given the probiotics. And these probiotics did not even stay in the gut. They just came out in the poop. And I'm thinking, sitting over here, wow, there goes a $50 billion poop. That's what happens. Probiotics, they do not help when you take your antibiotics to reduce the dysentery or diarrhea. They do not help in irritable bowel. They have no particular role because we don't understand this. Maybe in future we will, but right now we don't have the answers. In fact, there were emaciated children who had the bad now gut bacteria, because they were not given the foods and this and that and wrong types of food. And they were given a concoction of chickpeas and peanuts and bananas and soy. And their bacteria started regenerating. So it is a gut bacteria is so important. And as I was talking about the TMAO, that it is a gut bacteria that acts on the choline and converts it by then oxidizing and forming the TMAO, and also on the L-carnitine. So these are the things of the gut bacteria. But in my opinion, again, I don't believe that people should be wasting the money on probiotics. Take that money and buy a nice cruciferous vegetable or fruits or nuts, seeds, legumes, beans, or grains.
Love that. Absolutely love that. And Dr. Akil, I have so many questions for you. I could go on and on. I'm looking at our time, and we're actually going to share the full interview, and then we're going to share pieces of it as well. But you're an athlete. You're a septuagenarian athlete. And knowing that you started your athletic career at the age of 61, tell us what it's been like to really be an athlete on a whole food, plant-based diet, having the lifestyle, the 6 pillars all come together for you. Do you see yourself on the cover of Runner's Magazine?
No, but there are people who are far better than I am. I don't, but I can tell you this, that when I turn into whole food, plant-based diet, I did not do it suddenly. I did it in a stepwise fashion. First, I became a flexitarian. Flexitarian meaning cutting back on meats, eggs, and sugar and dairy. When I cut back on these things, I started feeling better. But still, there were bouts of diverticulitis. There were bouts of sinus, less though, because now I was meditating, sleeping better. Okay, all that was there. And then I did yoga and things. So I got better. But the same thing was there, that each time I did a long distance run, I would come, before that, I would take a large carb meal. That was what was required. But coming back from that, I would gorge myself on meat, a whole fried chicken or anything that came, fish. And then I would be sort of lethargic, in bed, not wanting to get up. I was for 5, 6, 7 days. And then I would come back to sort of life. This went on for a long time. 2009, when I had my surgery, to about 2011 to 2.5 of 2012. I don't know, somewhere there, I said, why? Why is it I'm still having this? Then I'm doing everything that I'm supposed to do. I'm exercising, I'm meditating, I have a good support, my family, I'm sleeping reasonably well. And then it came to me, is it the diet? I started reading Michael Greger and Dean Ornish and Kim Williams. And then it dawned on me that maybe it's my diet. So now think about it. I now go into a whole food plant-based diet. And I'll give you this example that when I went on that 100-mile bike ride, that time I was a true vegan, whole food plant-based vegan. And I did this. It was an odd day. I think we were on Saturday. The Friday was a beautiful day, but we were in Mobile, Alabama. And on Saturday, it suddenly turned extremely cold. In the morning, it was 28, and it came up to 31. And it was gale force winds. So even the headwinds, so even going down hill was trouble because of the headwinds. And so it took us a long time. It took us 9.5 hours, I think, to do that 100 miles.
Wow.
There's a lovely story about it in the last 10 miles. I'll let you know. But I did the 100 miles, and then I was feeling great after the race. And I told and said, let's go back to Gadsden. So at the same day, you're doing about 8.5 to 9 or 9.5 hours. And you sit in the car and go to Gadsden, which was about 6 hours. And on the way, I get a call that our clinics are open on Sundays, so we don't have a doctor working on our clinic. Can you come and help us? And I thought to myself, I'm feeling great. I said, okay. So 9.5, 6 hours, and the next 10-hour shift. And I came home like it was a usual day. I didn't have to go and sleep for 5 days or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I was feeling great. But during the race, oh man, it was cold. It was gusty. And that is why I tell you, there's another saying that I love to say. An unexciting truth can be eclipsed by a beautiful lie.
Yes,
So
it can.
the 10 miles were left. And I told my trainer, Stacy, I can't do it. There is nothing in my body that is not hurting with this bike and the gale force winds. And she, matter of fact, just looked at me and said, where did you reach 10 miles? It's only 3 miles. I said, really? Okay, let's go. 3 miles turned into 4 miles, 6 miles. And I finished the race. That's why I say it can be eclipsed by a brilliant lie. It's a white lie.
And it is the thing that kept you going, and it just gave you so much more in heart and energy. I love that. And to our audience, there are so many really great stories in Dr. Akil's book. If you don't have it, look below this video. You'll see the link that you can get it. And Dr. Akil, as we bring our conversation to a close, is there some wisdom about the path from being the couch potato or thinking, I'm healthy, it's not going to happen to me, to making certain that you're living your optimal, healthy life? Please share something with our audience that you feel is important for them to take away with them that can have a really positive impact on the way that they go about living their lives.
See, one thing that comes to mind is when we are young, we want to live a long life, and then we are afraid of old age. So that is the number one thing. Because medical science has advanced so much, and we are great. Don't misunderstand me. Medicine is required. The heart transplants, the liver transplants, the kidney transplants, all those things are fabulously taken care of by modern medicine. But chronic diseases, the diseases of the heart and cholesterol and diabetes, these are diseases that can be taken care of by modern medicine by treating the consequence. So they increase your lifespan. But what is your last 20, 30 years of your life? Are miserable. Now, so my point is, you want a long lifespan and be miserable, by all means continue. But if you want a long lifespan, along with a long health span, then you better follow this whole food plant-based diet. I did it at 61. I don't know what is going to happen to me tomorrow. I'm not worried about longevity. What I'm thinking is, I am living life to the fullest, to the best possible me. And if you are worried about, and if you are tired, not worried, but if you're tired of taking medicines and procedures and being hospitalized, like so many of us are, this is the time. Give it a try. At least give it a try. And I assure you that you will live your life to the fullest, enjoying every minute, every second of it. But there has to be a why. That why is a must that you answer. And if you do that, you will not only have a long life, but a long, healthy life. Numbers of 80 and 90 are man-made because they found that this, but not necessarily. Look at the blue zones. Where you have in Japan, Okinawa, Japan, and Italy, and one is in Loma Linda, I think. And there are about 5-6 months. What is the secret? Number one is that all of them have a plant-based diet and are totally active. There's only one thing that is different, is that they consume alcohol, but not in large quantities, but they do. And my point is that alcohol, the benefits and the risk, so confusing that my stand on alcohol is, if you are a person who has never had alcohol, I advocate do not have alcohol. If you are a person who is drinking responsibly and helping you, whatever, then I would not stop you. But that is my stand, because it's very confusing right now, a risk-beneficial thing. But that is my thing. So if you want to lead a good life, it is just being active, and more important than that is your whole food plant-based. Animals, meat, proteins, eggs, and dairy, and the Indian. We Indians have a cultural connection with oil. If you go to an Indian's house and if you do not have, they believe that it is a sign of being, generous if you use oil in our. So if you don't see a layer of oil floating on the pot of curry, then we feel that we are not doing justice to our guests. So the point is, let's get off this and let's all do it if we can. And then we all will be happier, and we'll save the planet, because you turn into a vegan for 3 main reasons: cruelty to animals, for the climatic reasons, and third is for health. My wife and my daughter turned 30 years ago vegan because of cruelty to animals. I turned 11 years ago on the basis of health. No matter what your reasoning is, the end result is you're making Mother Earth a better place for our children and our grandchildren.
Beautiful, Well said, and thank you. Dr. Akil, thank you for being here with us today. I'm so grateful for this amazing conversation. And to our audience, please reach out to Dr. Akil. Get a copy of his book. You'll find all of the information below, and including his LinkedIn link and his website.
Yeah,
And yes, yes,
I don't think you can see it.
it's the worst thing about um, the virtual backgrounds
I
is
know,
how it
I know. It's okay.
how
It's,
it does that.
I,
But
yeah, thank you so much.
you are welcome.
Yeah, you have really got me talking. This is the first time I've done that lengthy an interview, but I didn't feel like it was, and I felt very comfortable. Thank you for making me comfortable.
You are so welcome. And I know that you had some others that you wanted to actually acknowledge as being important on your journey. So why don't you take a moment and go ahead and do that,
Yeah.
because that's important to us as well.
The thing is that if you want to find more about all this, then go and to wedidit.health. That is something that is founded by a very dear friend of mine, Peter Goldstein, and he's a wonderful person. So I guess you should go on that site. Number two is the two young doctors that I've come across recently, Dr. Kaushik and Dr. Angela Reddy, Dr. Kaushik Reddy and Dr. Angela Reddy. And they are with the, I think they are with the plant-based lifestyle medicine.org, which is run by them. So I wish you could go on that too. And third is that a very dear friend of mine here in Atlanta, if people have problems in Atlanta, then I have a dear friend, Shobha Swami, who can help you implement what we have discussed regarding recipes and what to eat and when to eat, why to eat. She can help you. And then, of course, I would like everybody to read Crawford's ebook that is phenomenal. And last but not least is a group which is called DESI, DESI Low Fat, Whole Food, Plant-Based, No Oil group, which is there on Facebook. You will get at least 2 to 3 recipes every day. And you can keep trying them and you can write back to them if it does not work out. And I think there's a very nice friend of mine over there, Manku, and he simply is so brilliant in his ideas about whole food plant-based diet that he would be very happy to help you if you contact him on Facebook too. Thank you so very much.
Awesome.
I appreciate.
Yes, so you will be able to find links to all of these on there. And what's really nice is I too am in the Atlanta area. So Dr. Akil and I are going to connect even further. And then with Shobha, talking with her about coming on the show at some point, and maybe we'll even be able to do a demonstration for our audience. So that'll be fun. But we'll see. For now, thank you once again, Dr. Akil Taher. It has been an absolute pleasure being in this conversation with you. I know our audience is going to get so many great things out of it. And to our audience, thank you for joining us today. Even if you had to watch the video in parts and pieces, that's okay. The information here was phenomenal. And we've got more exciting things coming up in future episodes. So do stay tuned. Remember, like us on Facebook, turn on your notifications on YouTube, and share this video, share other videos. And you can go to our website at the p3academy.com/show and see all of our prior interviews and tag us and let us know what your favorite one was. I know this is my favorites. So again, thanks for being with us today. Share, share, share. Thank you so much. And remember, be well, live, love, and be a bigger positive impact maker in your world. And we'll see you next time. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.